Last Friday. Always the last Friday.
Pastor said to leave it here quietly.
Emeka! What are you? No, no!
Watches.
No, the prayer outpost. Pastor calls it. I understand now.
Prayer outpost. Pastor calls it.
Name was Emeka Okafor, and at 15, he was already the most talked about boy in Surulere. Not because he was tall, he was not, nor because he was loud. No, Emeka was talked about because every single morning, before the hawkers began their cries and before his mother's frying pan hit the fire, he was already on his knees on the cracked concrete floor of their one-story house on Enugu Ogunsanya Street, forehead pressed to the ground, lips moving in prayer. Pastor Kahind of the Redeemed Glory Chapel called him a vessel of God. His head teacher at St. Augustine's secondary school called him an example to his peers. His neighbors called him the little prophet. His mother, Mrs. Ngozi Okafor, simply called him her miracle, the son she had fasted 21 days to conceive after 2 heartbreaking miscarriages. But Lagos is a city that does not stay quiet about anybody for long. Emeka does not drink Coca-Cola on Sundays, his friend Tund once told a girl in JSS 3. He says it breaks his fast of worldly pleasures. The girl burst out laughing. Tund did not, asterisk. What no one yet knew, not his mother, not Pastor Kahind, not even Tund, who shared his desk, was that on the last Friday of every month, Emeka did not go straight home after school. He made a detour, and that detour was about to change the story of everyone on Enugu Ogunsanya Street forever. The Redeemed Glory Chapel sat between a pepper soup joint and a Zenith Bank ATM that had not dispensed money since Easter. It was painted a blinding white, whiter than any building on the street had a right to be, with a hand-painted banner that read, "Signs and wonders are your portion." Emeka loved that banner. He had read it every Sunday for 11 years. Pastor Kahind Adeyemi was 44 years old, broad-shouldered, and owned 3 cars. He drove a black Toyota Land Cruiser to church, a gray Camry to the market, and a red Honda he kept at an address nobody from the church had ever visited. It was to this third address, a 2-bedroom flat in Bogota, that Emeka had been making his monthly Friday detours. He had not gone there to see the pastor. He had gone to deliver church offerings that the pastor sometimes asked him to drop at his prayer outpost, as the man called it. Emeka, obedient and unquestioning, had done so for 6 months without thought, until the day the door to the flat opened before he could knock, and he saw something that made his Bible slip from his hands and fall, face down, on the dusty welcome mat. Standing in the doorway, wearing the church's women's choir robe, the white one with the gold trim, was Deaconess Emeka, a married woman, wife of Brother Festus the choir director, and she was most certainly not there for prayer, asterisk. Emeka picked up his Bible. He placed the brown envelope of offering money on the mat beside it. He turned around, and he ran all the way back to Surulere without stopping once. Tun Balagan was not a praying boy. He was the kind of boy who sold gala and la cassera from a cooler during school break and used the profit to buy credits for his Nokia phone. He was Emeka's best friend because opposites, in Lagos, always find each other. And because Tund, for all his hustling, was loyal in the way that only truly poor boys are, with his whole chest. Emeka told him the next Monday morning, in whispers, behind the chemistry lab where the broken fence gave a perfect view of the girls' assembly. Tun listened without interruption, which was unusual. When Emeka finished, Tun was quiet for 10 full seconds, an eternity by his standards. "So you mean," Tun said carefully, "that the same Pastor Kahind that laid hands on my head last Easter and said receive your breakthrough, that man is doing runs with Brother Festus's wife in a flat in Bogota?" "Keep your voice down," Emeka hissed. "God punish the devil," Tun muttered. Then he paused. "Wait, did she see your face?" Asterisk Emeka had not considered this. He went cold from the collar of his shirt down to his ankle socks. He did not know whether Deaconess Emeka had seen him clearly, but he knew that if she had, the offering money he had left on the mat would become the least of his problems, asterisk. 3 days later, his mother received a phone call. Pastor Kahind wanted Emeka to lead the junior congregation's special prayer session that Saturday. His voice on the phone, she reported, had been warm and fatherly. Emeka's stomach turned to cold water. Saturday came the way Saturday always comes in Lagos. Too fast, too loud, and with too much sun. Emeka wore his white church shirt, the one his mother had ironed the night before with a gleaming devotion usually reserved for Christmas. He prayed genuinely that morning, longer than usual, asking God for wisdom and also, privately, for the kind of boldness that he was not sure he actually possessed. The junior congregation's prayer session was held in the small hall to the left of the main sanctuary. 23 young people between ages 12 and 17 sat in white plastic chairs. Emeka stood at the front. He opened with Psalm 37. His voice did not shake. It was during the open prayer segment, when everyone was supposed to be murmuring their personal petitions, that the main sanctuary door swung open and Brother Festus walked in, looking for Pastor Kahind. He found instead his wife, Deaconess Amaka, who had volunteered to supervise the session and was seated, impeccably, in the front row with her Bible open and her head covered. The two of them locked eyes across the room. The temperature dropped 2 degrees. Emeka, watching from the front, felt the prayer session shift, felt the air tighten like a drum skin. He raised his voice. "Let us pray louder, brothers and sisters." Nobody prayed louder. Everyone was watching the Adeyemis. What no one but Emeka understood was that Brother Festus was not simply a jealous husband walking in at the wrong moment. In his hand was a folded piece of paper. And on that paper, Emeka would discover later, was a bank statement showing 20 monthly transfers of 50,000 naira each from the church general account to a personal account he did not recognize. Brother Festus had been doing his own investigating. He simply had not yet discovered the worst of what he would find. The church finance records, which nobody outside the trustees was supposed to see, had been sitting in a manila folder in the vestry since March. It was Emeka who found it. He had been sent to dust the vestry shelves by Sister Beezy, the church secretary, who had a soft spot for him and trusted him with the key. He had not been looking for anything. He had simply knocked the folder off the shelf and caught it before it hit the ground, and 3 papers had slid out. He had read them. He wished he had not, because what those papers showed was that the Redeemed Glory Chapel Building Fund, the one they had been collecting for since 2019, the one his own mother contributed 3,000 naira to every month, the one with the big thermometer poster on the church wall showing progress toward 5 million naira, had indeed reached 5 million naira 2 years ago, and every naira after that had gone elsewhere. Emeka had put the papers back. He had dusted every shelf with extraordinary care. He had returned the key to Sister Beezy and thanked her quietly. Then he had gone home, knelt on his concrete floor, and not prayed for a very long time. He simply stared at the wall. "God," he finally said aloud, to the ceiling and the gecko that lived near the light fitting, "why are you showing me these things? I am 15. I just want to pass my GSC. The ceiling had no answer. But Tund, when Emeka called him on his Nokia that evening, had several. The most alarming was, "We need to make a copy of those papers before they disappear." Because in Nigeria, the first thing that disappears before a scandal is the evidence. Mrs. Ngozi Okafor was not a foolish woman. She had raised Emeka alone since his father relocated to Abuja with his second wife in 2014. She sold fabrics at Tejuosho Market 5 days a week, attended 3 church services every week, and could recite Psalm 91 in both English and Igbo. She had faith the way some people have iron, not decorative but structural, holding everything up. This made it unbearable for Emeka to watch her that Sunday morning, singing in the front row with her hands raised and her eyes closed and her best Ankara pressed crisp, while Pastor Kahind stood at the pulpit and preached about sowing seeds into good soil. Emeka sat behind her, photocopied documents folded in his sock, his hands clasped on his lap like a perfect altar boy. After service, Pastor Kahind clapped his hand on Emeka's shoulder in the car park and said, "Emeka, your mother tells me you want to go to Covenant University. Let us pray together. God will provide school fees." He smiled the wide, easy smile of a man who believes his secrets are waterproof. Emeka smiled back. "Thank you, sir." He had decided, somewhere between Psalm 37 and the benediction, that he was not going to confront the pastor alone. He was going to tell his mother. But he needed to choose the right moment, because in Nigeria, the messenger of bad news about a beloved pastor often suffers more than the pastor himself. Asterisk. That moment arrived faster than he planned, because on Monday morning, someone had already slid an anonymous note under the church notice board glass. Not the full story, but enough of it, in cramped biro letters, to make 3 women phone each other before noon and set the whole of Surulere buzzing by evening. By Tuesday, the story had 3 versions. In the first version, Pastor Kahind had simply mismanaged funds. In the second, he was running a full-scale money-doubling scheme from the Bagada flat. In the third, the one whispered in the hairdressers, the buka, and the school gate, the Bagada flat had hosted activities so creative that Deaconess Amaka's name was mentioned in the same breath as the word abomination before someone would quickly add, God forbid, and then repeat the whole story to the next person. Brother Festus disappeared from view entirely, which Lagos interpreted as guilt, grief, or a combination of both. His absence from choir practice was noted. His absence from his shop on Allen Avenue was noted more. 2 of his apprentices showed up to the church midweek service without him and sat very still, like men who had been warned not to say anything. Emeka was summoned to Pastor Kahind's office on Wednesday afternoon. He went. He sat across the wide mahogany desk in the leather chair reserved for counseling. The pastor offered him ribena and a biscuit. Emeka accepted both because his mother had raised him to accept hospitality. People talk in churches, the pastor said pleasantly, leaning back in his chair. You know that, Emeka. You are a mature boy. Sometimes the enemy uses small situations to create confusion. He paused. I hear you were in the vestry recently. Asterisk. Emeka ate his biscuit. He said, Yes, sir. Sister Beezy asked me to dust the shelves. The pastor smiled. Of course. But his fingers had tightened on the arm of his chair. Emeka noticed. He was 15, not blind. He told his mother on Thursday night, after dinner, after she had washed the plates and set them to dry and was sitting with her Bible in the plastic chair by the window where the evening breeze came in. He did not build up to it. He placed the photocopied documents on her Bible and said, Mama, I need you to look at these. She looked. She was quiet for a long time. The kind of quiet that is not absence of feeling but the presence of too much of it, all at once with nowhere to go. Where did you get these? She finally asked. The vestry. I put them back. I made copies. She looked at him the way mothers look at children who have suddenly become something larger than what they raised, both proud and frightened. And the other matter, she said. The one people are whispering about Amaka and the pastor? I saw them, Emeka said quietly. In Bagada. I did not look long. I picked up my Bible and I ran. He looked at his hands. I have been praying about what to do since the first Friday I saw it. God did not give me a clear answer, so I am giving it to you instead. Asterisk. His mother was still for another moment. Then she folded the documents, placed them inside her Bible between Ecclesiastes and Song of Solomon, which Emeka thought was either accidental or the most pointed thing she had ever done, and said, Tomorrow, I am calling the church trustees. Not the pastor. The trustees. She looked at him. You are a good boy, Emeka. But goodness is not the same as silence. I should have taught you that sooner. The trustees met on Friday evening in the vestry. Emeka was not present. He was at home eating jollof rice and studying for his physics test, but Tund, who had a cousin who cleaned the church, received updates every 20 minutes via text message and relayed them to Emeka with the urgency of a match commentator. At 7:14 p.m., they have the documents. The head trustee is crying. A man, oh! At 7:41 p.m., Pastor Kahind has arrived. He is calm. Emeka, this man has nerves of iron. At 8:03 p.m., he is confessing. He is confessing, oh. My cousin says his voice is shaking now. At 8:27 p.m., they have asked him to step down. He has not agreed yet. 3 trustees have walked out. At 9:02 p.m., he agreed. He is stepping down. Emeka! The man is weeping on the floor of the vestry. In front of God and everybody. Emeka read each message in his bedroom, his physics textbook open on Newton's third law, for every action, an equal and opposite reaction, and thought this was perhaps the most relevant thing he had ever studied. Asterisk. Deaconess Emeka returned to her matrimonial home that same night, arriving with 2 suitcases and her children at a door that Brother Festus opened without a word. What happened behind that door was private. Lagos, for once, agreed to leave it so. Some things, even in a city of 10 million opinions, belong only to the people inside them. By Sunday, the Signs and Wonders banner outside the church had been taken down. The wall beneath it showed a pale rectangle where the sun had not reached. The congregation gathered anyway, confused and grieving in the way congregations do, not because they needed a building or a specific man, but because they needed each other and were not yet sure how to say so. 3 months after the fall of Pastor Kahind, the Redeemed Glory Chapel elected a new minister, a quiet woman named Pastor Sola Afolabi, who drove a 10-year-old Corolla and wore flat shoes and had a doctorate in theology from the University of Ibadan. She removed the thermometer poster and replaced it with a full public accounting of every naira in the building fund. She posted it on the church notice board and on WhatsApp. Within 2 Sundays, the congregation's attendance had risen by a third. Brother Festus rejoined the choir. He sang tenor. His wife sat 3 rows behind him. They were working on it, which in Lagos means a thing is difficult, painful, and not yet finished, but it is still alive. Tun passed his JSC with AC in mathematics and AB in commerce, which he declared a miracle, though he attributed it to hard work rather than prayer, which Emeka said was honest and also slightly wrong. They argued about this comfortably, as old friends argue, the argument being the affection itself. Asterisk, Mrs. Ngozi Okafor told one person, just one, her sister in Enugu, what her son had done. He saw something corrupt, and he carried it like a stone in his chest for months, she said. He prayed over it. He brought it to me when he could not carry it alone. Then he let me handle the adults. She paused. I don't know if that is wisdom or faith. Maybe they are the same thing at 15. As for Emeka Okafor himself, he was still on his knees every morning before the hawkers cried and before his mother's frying pan hit the fire. Lagos was still loud. The gecko still lived by the light fitting. His beast forms were filled out, Covenant University written neatly in the top choice box. He prayed for clarity. He prayed for his mother's health and his father's conscience and Tun's mathematics. He prayed cautiously for Pastor Kahind. He prayed for the church. And he prayed, most of all, for the kind of faith that does not look away, that keeps its eyes open, receives what it sees honestly, and trusts that truth, however inconvenient and however long it takes, always eventually finds a door.